Right, the forecastle deck, bow deck and the sternum now all pretty much finished until final construction before rigging, because there's still a few more bits to put on. I'll start with the chain. I've bought this chain myself because this is the kit supplied chain. It's only about 1 inch long and it's very thin. And if I compare that to that, you can probably just make out that that chain, one, it's a hell of a lot thinner, and two, it ain't long enough. So putting that to one side, that was on the F sprue. What I used is some chain made by Beads Unlimited. I picked this up from Hobbycraft for 1 meter. The code is CHTR2 space AC, trace chain. So hopefully you could still pick this from Hobbycraft or Beads Unlimited or any good Hobbycraft store, because it's like jewellery chain, and this cost me $3.99 for the meter. So I drew it off the card holder, put my finger there, drew it all the way around the top buffer, cut it off where I felt it was where it needed to be cut off with my cutters. Just got some cocktail stick and my super glue, just ran it down the actual chain anchor chain mount, around there and around the buffer, and then just dropped it in the hole there and just drew it onto the super glue. While that was drying, I then did the same, rinse and repeat for the other side, and these have dried an absolute treat on the super glue, and they're looking a hell of a lot better. It's like a copper nickel finish. I haven't bothered painting those, I've left it the way it is. The spare anchor, which is J8 off the chrome sprue, I stripped it, primed it, sprayed it, and then painted it in the 36109 anthracite and glued that on. You can see that I've also stained the deck. I'll explain that in a moment. Going to the stern, so I painted all the bits and bobs, the little cleats is what I'm going to call them. Did those in the 36378 dark grey. Did those two in the gunmetal. I did the benches in the Humbrol acrylic number 9 brown. Gunmetal for the sides of the buffers, and the metallic brass Humbrol enamel for number 54 for the tops of the buffers. Once that was done, I went back to my 36185 brown, the orangey brown. Did the side walls of the cargo bay hatches, the back wall here for my little interior hatches there, and then I did that wall also and let that dry. Once all that had dry, I then painted this grey on. This grey is 36157, took 2 coats to get that room done. Once that was dry, I then started to work on the deck, which is my CO1 teak from Sovereign Hobbies. I did 2 coats, much like the forecastle, and left that to dry. While that was drying, bringing this forward, I went to work on the staining of the deck on the forecastle. Using my Citadel Earthshade wash, painted it on, let it dry, but I didn't like the look of it. I felt it was too dark. So once that dry, I thought, you know what, I'll paint on my CR1 teak again and start again. So I painted the CR1 teak on, just the one coat, but as it was drying, as I was putting it on, some of the Earthshade wash was actually showing through. And I like it the way it is. This is quite nice. It's nice and subtle, because you know this will probably be a high traffic area for the passengers. And the weathering is lovely and subtle. It's not overboard. So once I realised that, I then did it for this. So I put the Earthshade wash on again on the bow, and then let that dry, and then went again with my CO1 teak, one coat on top of that, and the same results. Nice and subtle. So now this is all done, I can now start working on the decks. Going back to the decks, you can see I've sprayed them all now, all 3 decks. I just basically went with a grey primer, let that dry, and then sprayed the white on. Now the white was 2 coats. I did the main first coat first, just a light dusting, and then where the paint had gone in, not got into the nooks and crannies, the white, where it was still showing grey, I just then did a second coat just to touch those up. Turning these over, you can see that I haven't painted the underneath. I've just left them in the tan plastic. And generally then it's not looking too bad. You know, with them nooks and crannies corners. With the second coat. It's gone down really well. So now these have all been sprayed, this is now ready for painting and detailing. Right, welcome back. The preliminary deck work is all done now. I'll start with the bottom deck. Basically what I did is I painted the insides with the ochre, which is 36188. Which is pretty much the same colour as what it was before it was spray painted. So I've done all that. Took about 3 coats in the end. I've then gone with the which one was that now? That was the 36157 grey for that lot there. I've also done the actual walking deck work painted on the CL1 teak, 2 coats of that, then the Earthshade, and then a coat to weather it, and then a coat back on top of that to give it that, you know, traffic weathered look. I've gone with the gunmetal for this grating work. I've also done the bench there. I've also done the staircase. Now I did that with the number 9 Humbrol brown for the actual handrails, the CO1 teak for the carpet. Done the same for this one as well, this stairwell here. So that's all done. Going on to the middle deck, again with the 36157 for the inner grey. Went with the 2 coats of the teak for all the deck work. And obviously again with the Earthshade to weather it, and then another coat of the teak. Also again done those benches, they're not looking too bad. And I've done the 2 staircases as well, again with the teak and the number 9 brown. Then you got the main upper deck, obviously with the cutouts, but again with the grey, the various bits. You got the one thing I like about this upper deck, doing the actual benches, I've got a lot more room because I ain't got no walls in the way yet, so I did all those in the number 9 brown. And that's pretty much it. All 3 decks are now done, and these are now ready to be glued together. Right, I'm now gluing 2 of the decks together, namely the middle and the top deck. I'll start off with the bridge fascia plate. I cut it off a sprue, sanded it down, sprayed it in the grey primer, let it dry, then sprayed it in the white and let that dry. Now according to the instructions, it tells you to glue the fascia plate into the middle deck first and let that dry. So what I did is I got some of my model glue and just ran it down the channel, pushed it into place. To be honest, I let the model glue set for a couple of minutes first, you know, let it go tacky, so it would actually sit into place. I wouldn't have to glue it, hold it down or with some tape, and it dried very nicely and it didn't pop out at all. So I let that dry overnight. Then came to gluing the top deck in. So what I did, on the wall, the tops of the walls on the middle deck and the handrails as well, I got my PVA glue, because I felt if I use the model glue, it's going to run all the paint off the tops of the middle deck walls. So I got my brush, brushed some PVA glue on all the way around on the top walls, apart from the ones that are sticking through the top deck, and on top of the handrails, because on the underneath of the top deck there's some grooves as long as the handrails. So there's one there, one the other side, and the one at the back there. So I ran the glue in the channels as well, and then glued them, slotted them in first, glued it into place, pushing it into the groove of the bridge fascia. Now the only trouble is with the bridge fascia, once I put the glue in the channel, these top pieces kept popping forward. So I've got some food ties, you know, the metal food ties that are wrapped in the plastic. So I just threaded it through the stair wall entrance hub, and then wrapped it around each other to tie it on, and that's drying an absolute treat. It's holding into place really well. Then I put my clamps on all the way around. Now with these handrails, they kept popping out, so I had to push them in my tweezers. Once I felt they'd gone in, then I put my clamps on and my pegs, because I'd run out of clamps. So I did that for all the handrails, and then just clamped it all the way around. So this has now been drying for 24 hours. The only problem is this gap here. Now if I push that down, it's going to bend down. So what I'm going to have to do, once all this is dried, I'll have to put my sheet plastic in. It's going to be 16 long and 15 wide, and I'm going to have to glue that into place. But this ain't looking too bad, so what I'm going to do now is just let this dry for another 24 hours, just to be sure. Taking all the clamps off from the middle and upper decks, because I glued them together. So I took all the clamps off. There's all my clamps and my couple of pads. I've also took the food ties off the front bridge fascia plate. Because like I said, that kept popping out, so I had to put my food tie on, but that's glued in lovely and nice into the groove of the curved groove. The PVA has done a fantastic job. It's really well come together. Now there's a slight issue. I know it's dried. Now I don't know where the well camera's picking it up, but it's slightly on the piss. It's straight there, and it bends out very, very slightly in the middle, and then it's straight again. Even though I did lay this flat, and I put it on these blocks of wood, you know, there was actually 2 more in there. I've had to use those to spray my deck parts. Though, like I said, there was 5 blocks there, so it's actually rested quite straightly. Now if I turn this up on it to edge, hopefully it should stand up. Yeah, you can see it's a bit, you know, bent outward slightly in the middle. Turning this over, see if it's prominent that side. Yeah, you see it's slightly bent in the middle. So I'm going to have to test fit this into the side walls of the superstructure. I'm assuming, much like the forward bridge fascia plate, it's going to have grooves. I mean, it might be the case as I put the, you know, mount them into the grooves, I might have to do what I did with the rails, and then like get them mounted into the grooves mostly, and just ease them into place, push them into place. But like I said, this is dried very, very sturdy indeed. Now sitting down, another issue I had when I just put not the middle deck, the top deck on when I was putting all these bits together, I thought to myself, well, hold on, I can't put these pieces, that and that piece there, on top of there, because there's nothing for it to mount on. It was just sitting on air, and I was wondering how the heck, you know, what am I supposed to mount those on to? But then when I was looking at the plans, you know, further ahead, I realised, because these were slightly taller, they would actually push through the holes, so these would have something to mount onto. So if I just put that on there like that, I mean, obviously I've got to clamp that down, but it sits on perfect pretty much. And then if I get this piece, that sits perfect. So that's why those walls were slightly raised on them sections, because on the the one I did in 2012, this was all solid. There weren't no holes at all. So that is looking really, really nice. Apart from the issue with the bit in the middle, I'm really well chuffed on how this has turned out. Moving the deck out the way, Here's all my deck pieces. So with these deck pieces here, I've obviously put all the bits together and everything. I've sprayed them in the grey primer, let that dry, and then sprayed me white on top of that, because a lot of these pieces have got to be white. But with this one here, that funnel area, every funnel area has got to be grey. So what I've done with this one, I've just sprayed it in the grey, masked off this area here, and then sprayed the white for the side walls. With this little deck house here, that top area's got to be in the grey, so I've just sprayed that in the grey and then just put a little bit of the tape on top of that to mask that off. With this piece here, again, you've got the two smokestack areas. This little area here is for the roof of the bridge, so I've had to spray that in the grey, mask that off. Now this area here, which is again for the smokestack, I put the masking tape on there, the electrical tape, and then I've got a bit of blue tack for the curved areas. I've also got a bit of tape here for that to be, because that's where one of the domes go, and then a smokestack area there. I've just got the blue tack and then just put that on, because the blue tack for those awkward bits is a very, very good masking material indeed. So use blue tack and it peels off very, very nicely. So that's those done. Now I've got my clear spray. Now these domes here, I didn't want any paint getting on those whatsoever, so I just masked those off with the black tape, and I've just took that off, and they've come out an absolute treat. But these deck houses, I don't understand why I just didn't have 4 walls and then put the clear part on top. But it's a complete deck house, as it were. So I've got my 1mm masking tape and put the bits of tape on there individually, and then wait for I left them on for a day to dry because I've never used that tape before. And then I just got my Swan Morton knife and changed the blade and cut them off, and they came off very easy. Just to trim them up, make them nice and neat. This one here is just the blue tape, because there's 3 windows on there. And again with this deck house, with the 1mm masking tape. So turning this over, and you can see where the tape is. And there's, sorry, 4 windows, not 3, for that one. And there's my other deck house. Now, to stop any paint from getting inside that way, even though I didn't spray them that way, I put some of my black tape on again and just put them on top of there, smoothed them down around the edges and sprayed it on the top like that. So all I've got to do now for this is just remove that tape, but my little deck auxiliary pieces are looking really nice. Right, peeling off me bits of 1mm masking tape. Now, some of the bits I've masked off are 1.5mm wide, so I've had to put one piece of the 1mm on and overlap it slightly. I mean, it ain't come out perfect. I've obviously got to clean up these edges to make them look a bit more neater. Same on this deck house as well. Some of the paint has actually got underneath the tape, so there's a bit more bleed that I've got to deal with. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do this yet. And on this one with the 4 windows, that's not looking too bad. So now I've just got to clean these edges up now.